All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of January, 2024, and this is the Cluster API Office Hours meeting. Cluster API is a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically means if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you, and please treat everyone as you would expect to be treated. And to say explicitly, please be kind to each other. So at the beginning of our meetings, we like to take an opportunity to welcome new community members and give them a chance to introduce themselves. So I will be quiet, perhaps my dog will as well. And if anyone would like to raise their hand, I will call on you and you can say hi. All right, I am not seeing any hands going up, so we will move on from the welcome new attendees in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any new open proposals since the last time? I don't think so. No new open proposals, nothing to look at there. So let's get into our discussion topics. I see someone has added at the top here how to join the Zoom meeting now that there's no link in this document. I guess why don't we go into Fabrizio's topics about the agenda doc, and maybe we can bring that in as a question there. So please, Fabrizio.
Yeah, so an update about what we discussed last week. So basically, due to the change of policy, existing document, some of the existing documents were not accessible anymore. So we are doing some work to solve the problem once and for all. And first of all, thanks to Vince, which is doing the hard work here. So the good news is that, first of all, now we have nice link for the agenda docs. The link is they use the same domain of the cluster API books /agenda. If you want to access agenda for a specific year, it is /agenda/2023 or whatever. Okay, for now, currently 2024 doc is okay, so the link point to an actual document. The other, and we are still moving the older documents. But we are waiting for the country backs to give us a community-owned drive, so we solve once and for all issue about company changing policies. Unfortunately, we discovered that the 2021 agenda docs is not accessible anymore. We don't know who owned it. We are reaching out to all the maintainers, stuff like but yeah, I'm not sure that we managed to recover it. I answered the question how to join the Zoom meeting. Now there is no link in this document. We are going to copy the link in this document. So this will be easily fixed right after I finish to talk. Or I don't know if someone else, if Stefan or someone else want to fix it while talk. That's good. Yeah. Question, comments? Stefan?
Yep, just the one I wrote in the chat. I'm not sure if you already mentioned it because it was a bit late. Basically just a question if we can use the same, I mean, not a redirect thing, but if you can also use the G drive for providers. I think we don't necessarily have to give like every provider maintainer access, but just something like someone who has access can create a meeting note doc for vSphere provider, give access to the mailing list, and then we can use it from this point forward.
I think, yeah, that's a good point. I will defer the final answer to Vince, which is handling the creation of this drive. But if we can share also for provider, I'm more than happy to do so.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments about the agenda doc topic? All right. I'm not seeing any hands going up. So thanks for all the hard work here. And I guess there's a follow-up about the drive. Do we need, is that something we need to, I guess, do we need to talk to the wider Kube SIGs community or?
We, as far as I understood, Vince already sent the request. We are just waiting for the drive to be created. Then we will move there all the document, adjust the link, and figure it out also permission now that there is a request for it.
Awesome. Thank you. So you have the next topic as well, which is proposing a change to the release cycle.
Yes, so the different topic. So as probably you all know, in Cluster API, we continually test Cluster API against the upcoming Kubernetes release, which is basically CI latest. Currently, we are already testing against 1.30. The benefit of all those tests is that basically the day that when a new Kubernetes minor is available, is that CAPI is immediately ready to official support a new Kubernetes version. Yeah, in practice, we need just to run a final end-to-end test with the official binary. But yeah, the risk is really minimal. Okay, but what happened is that due to according to the current release schedule, what we do is that we run this test and then we declare the Kubernetes release as officially supported in the next patch release, within the next monthly patch release. Okay, due to basically unfortunate timing, Kubernetes release being deleted, CAPI release being deleted, stuff like that. What happened this time is that even if we were ready for official Kubernetes support for 129 at the beginning of the 13th of December, when 129 was deployed, we are going to declare official support next week when we release a patch. So that means that our users are waiting more for 1 month for this certification, while we are ready since some time. So in order and I looked also at the calendar for Kubernetes 1.30 and CAPI 1.7, and there is a big chance that the same will happen in the future for the next release. So what I'm proposing here is that we plan for an extra CAPI patch release to declare official support for a Kubernetes release right 1 week after basically the Kubernetes release. So we have still time to implement our end-to-end test to do that final test and certify it. And the caveat is we only need this extra release when the two release cycles do not align nicely. But in case they align nicely, we can simply wait for a patch release. So the point is, we are ready. Let's not make our users wait for 1 month. Yeah, I'm looking for feedback about this idea. I have a PR out that changes our release cycle documents, etc., etc. I don't think this will be a huge work because it will be only a patch release for the latest CAPI version. We have a great automation. Release team is working like a clock. So I think this will be minimal effort and really nice effort for our users. If you have opinion, let me know now or comment on the PR.
Yeah, does anybody have questions, comments, criticisms? This sounds like a really nice add-on for our users. So thank you for putting all the work into this, Fabrizio. All right, so I'm not seeing any hands going up, so it seems like, oh, here we go. Nolan, please.
Yeah, just what happens in the month between Cappy grabbing support and upstream officially supporting the release? Or am I misunderstanding? Like, it sounds like there's going to be a small gap in time where Cappy supports Kubernetes release that the upstream Kubernetes teams don't. Am I misunderstanding that?
So let's clarify. So what meaning? What happened in the month between Cappy providing support and okay? So the point is the following. What happened is Kubernetes 129 got released the 13th of December, if I remember well. Okay, so the release is out, but in our documentation of Cappy, in our release note, there is no Cappy release that tells customer that Cappy support 129, even if we have a test that certify that we are able to do it. So we cannot do this in advance because, let me say, until the last second we can be 100%. But after the release is out, we can do a final test, create a new release, and basically update our support matrix and add to the release note the fact that we support it. So it is just a matter of formalize what we know, but we have to do this step after the Kubernetes release.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm seeing in chat, Jack and Stefan corrected my thinking. I thought it was the other way around, that Kubernetes had released 129 and then they were waiting a month to declare official support, but rather they're out and Cappy hasn't released a version. Got it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. I saw also a comment from Cecile. So in the cluster API documentation, there is a caveat. We are committed to support the new Kubernetes release in a patch release, basically. But we can do this only if the change required to do so are not invasive. Otherwise, we need a new minor release. This caveat is well described in the documentation. The good point is that since we are testing on CI latest, we will know this in advance. And so, yeah, we will have chance to consider option about how to solve it.
All right, Lubomir, you've got your hand up.
I wanted to ask, is it possible to invert this matrix so that instead of saying we support this in this version, we can say, hey, we anticipate a breaking change in core Kubernetes 132, and this is a matrix of versions no, basically a list is better in this case, the list of versions that we do not support yet. My point is like default cluster API to a state where it always supports the version of master, KK master, and every upcoming release is technically supported unless we explicitly say it's not.
I personally don't think that is correct. So saying that we support a future release before testing them is a kind of, yeah.
Yeah, but does Cappy right now test KK master?
Yes.
Always. So
always.
You're basically already verifying that you support the next release.
Yeah, we are verifying, but until the last PR is merged, we cannot certify it.
I think that's not 100% correct. I think we're not testing Kubernetes master, we're testing CI latest of the upcoming release, which is, I guess, almost the same, but not 100% the same as saying it's the latest commit of Kubernetes main. But I think it's also one that makes more sense to track, like the latest commit on the next release versus actual main.
Yeah, because it's much more simpler to just claim that it is supported.
Yeah, maybe also worth to clarify again what is written in documentation. What does we mean with support? With support, we mean that we have an end-to-end test on that release, that it test upgrade from the previous release to a current release. But we are, for instance, we are not supporting, and we are not changing the or extending the support rule that Kubernetes itself gives. So we basically certify the copy work with that release by having these two tests. And we need the release to be out to get these two tests. So I think that we did a pretty good job in the past to describe what support did. Documentation is clear, and we are sticking to it.
Essentially, there's also something in the Kubernetes releases that there's a long period of code freeze, so nothing changes and nothing merges. Like the release nowadays is like 4 months, like almost 1 month of the release is just code freeze, pretty much. At this point, like you can claim that just all the features are there and this release works for you.
Yeah, but it will be claiming I support a release before an exist. It
Yeah,
actually
before the
exists.
Before the tag. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Let me say, what we do is we continue to test, so we reduce the risk to the minimum. Code freeze for sure help to reduce the risk to the minimum, but until the tag is cut in Kubernetes, we cannot claim official support, in my opinion. Stefan?
Yeah, related to that and also what Sissy wrote. So I think it's good that we have this disclaimer that we don't backport if it's too invasive. But what happens in reality is that the copy minor release and the Kubernetes minor release, they're roughly scheduled for the same time, plus minus a week. Because we always test against the release branch anyway ahead of time, and we already fix, basically, we already have all the changes in place that we need for new Kubernetes minor release we have the changes in place, and then Kubernetes is in code freeze. So it's like 99.9% guaranteed that the minor release is already compatible, which also means that we can backport. I mean, there might be, who knows what happens in the future, that we can't actually make it work, but we're at a point where it's like almost 100%. And that's like the difference between claiming support and not, that we actually test against the zero tags. But our definition of basically that we test stuff, so you can't really change that.
Cecile, please.
Yeah, I think this brings up a good point, though. If support is really just us having tests, then do we really need a user-facing release for that? Because technically, a user could just go and use the new Kubernetes version with the existing release, right? It's more about having the seal of we've tested and validated it works, except in special case by case where there might be a change needed.
I think that in order to support custom, so in order to say we need a test in order to say it works, and we need a test to say that it continued works. I think that this is the minimal bar for us to support customer as well. So if a customer want to go and use this release before we say it works, okay, but what it is at its own risk. We don't have a signal. For sure, we will be working on it. But again, I think that is, as a project, we cannot, let me say, certify what we don't have approval of.
Did you re-raise your hand, Cecile? I might have missed that.
Yeah. Yep.
Please.
I think my point is not that they should use it before we've had time to test it, but more like once we've had time to test it, can't we backwards certify the release that already exists if there are no changes needed? instead of creating a new release.
Yeah,
right? Like, I think we should keep the release as needed instead of saying we're always going to release a patch to support Kubernetes.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was chatting about the same point with Stefan yesterday. Honestly, I think that a release is a point in time, and it will be really confusing if we go back and we change the release note of a release, adding support for a new Kubernetes version or stuff like that. I know it could be annoying just cutting a patch release, but I really don't like to change a release note retroactively, to change documentation retroactively. It seems more icky. I don't know how to explain it.
You don't like editing history, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. So, and someone can tell if you change. Imagine I have a copy release beginning of December, Kubernetes release in the middle of December, and you go and tell, oh, this copy release support Kubernetes, and someone look at it. How can you claim support even before it exists?
I mean, no, you're right. You can't put the cart before the horse, right? I mean, but can't we say we are expecting? I mean, isn't there a way that we can say we're expecting? Everything's passing right now. I guess this goes back to the point you were making about is there like a different language we can use to say we're pre-version certified for version X.Y+1, even though we know it won't be out for another 2 or 3 weeks, and then in the next release.
We can write, as of today, the latest CI release works of the new Kubernetes version works with this copy version. This is something that we can clarify, but it's not official support. We can add it to our release notes. It's not a big deal, and it is transparent.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody else have comments or questions or thoughts about this? It's a good discussion. Thank you, everyone, for participating. All right, so I'm not seeing hands go up. So Fabrizio, I'm going to move on to your next topic.
Okay, I see, just before moving on, I see a chat going on about this document. Is there some question that I have to answer, or are you solving this in chat?
It looks like there's a little bit of, Cecile's brought up an interesting point about if there are 0 commits on a release branch since the tag, we'd be releasing an empty release. That seems to be what the current, because if we do it, let's say we release, let's say we don't specify upcoming support for the release that's about to happen. And then we do a point release right after it does happen so that we can update that. We might be doing a release with no actual change from the one we just did. So the point release would be empty, commit.
Okay, that's I think that we need to be practical. So if we are releasing copy on Monday and we know that Kubernetes is going to be released on Tuesday, we postpone the copy release. We should be really pragmatic about this and not put ourselves in a corner. But yeah, let me say, we merge a lot of PR every day in copy, so having 0 commit is not is also not a problem. But I think we should be really pragmatic. We know that our users like to get support for Kubernetes release soon, and we need to accommodate our schedule to make this happen. That's more or less the gist of the change that I'm proposing.
Yeah, just from the chat, I know you didn't have time to read it up. We never end up in a situation where we have 0 commits because we always have a commit where we backport the test coverage and the book changes and the CAPD examples and this sort of stuff.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, but let me say, if we know in advance that the two release will be one near the other, we should just adjust our schedule. And that will simplify everyone's jobs. No need to be sorry, Cecile. Those are the right questions to have.
I agree with you, Fabrizio. I welcome the philosophical discussions. All right, so are we good to move on then, or I'm going to wait for a hand going up or something happening in chat. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Fabrizio, the mic is back in your hands.
Yeah, sorry folks for having so many points today, but okay. So right before Christmas, we had a discussion about a rule for adding new providers to cluster cattle provider list. Discussion was basically triggered by 2 different teams claiming the same name. Okay. So as a follow-up of this, I sent a PR. We change basically and clarifies how adding to provider to cluster cattle should work. And the main change is that for all the providers which are outside the Kubernetes SIG org, from now on, we are going to ask to add the prefix of the GitHub orgs to the name. This will make name unique by default, basically. The caveat here is that I investigated the topic a little bit, but it is not easy to make this rule retroactive, because if we want to do so, we have to figure it out a way to basically migrate all names to new names in existing cluster. And we have this name in a couple of places in the provider resources. We have it in the label that we apply to the components of each provider. So it is kind of tricky. So I think that this is an acceptable trade-off. We start defining a new role going on, and then with low priority, if someone wants to figure it out, a migration path, it is more than welcome.
That makes good sense to me, and it's interesting that this is kind of around Proxmox. I was just looking at those the other day, and I was like, which one of these? Does anybody have questions or comments about this one? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. I think this is probably not very controversial. It makes sense to me. I think adding the organization name prefixed on is probably pretty good. It would be interesting if we could solve the problem of like doing upgrades and changing the names and whatnot, but maybe it's just too big for what we're kind of looking at the moment, or not really worth it. Ilya, you've got your hand up, please.
Yeah, hello. I have just a small question. Probably that's defined in PR, but I'm not sure what if the following situation happened. For example, somebody created the provider, and after this, we have a vendor that would like to do this. So vendor will be the second, yeah, and after and when the vendor trying to do this, the name already taken by somebody who started to work on it earlier.
This should not be an issue, because if the provider exists in the Kubernetes SIG, it will have a simple name. It exists outside Kubernetes SIG, it will have a prefix, which is the GitHub org, so they make it unique. So I don't think basically when the vendor will, I'm not sure I 100% understand the case. We can move this to Slack maybe, but if a vendor asks for the same name, the vendor will use a different GitHub repository. So the name will be vendor slash whatever.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it is, yeah, more or less like the example that Vince is posted in chat. It will be org/repo or org/provider, and the combination of the two will be unique.
I don't know if this kind of fits in with, oh, sorry, Lubomir, I didn't see you had your hand up. Please go ahead.
Oh, I didn't hear if, sorry if that's the case, but I didn't hear what happens if a provider is already up in a private GitHub organization, and eventually we start using it in Costa Kernel with this prefix, and eventually we want to migrate into Kubernetes 6. This might be a bit confusing, but I guess it's not a big problem, right?
Yeah, we don't have a solution for migrating name. It is the same issue why we are not migrating name for existing providers.
Yeah, it will remain with the old organization in the prefix, but they will be in Kubernetes 6, which I guess is fine.
Or they can create a name without the prefix so that point to the. At the end, they are changing the repo, so some change. They have to do some change, but so far we don't have this change. This case, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling like given the complexity of that, it's probably we're probably not going to deal with it until the first time it comes up and it actually happens. You know, who knows when that might be. All right, so I see Chris, you know, so we still have to have a big thread and debate if two folks want the same name and come into Kubernetes SIGs.
Yeah, but I think that this is a different discussion. As a SIG, we are happy to host everyone, but at the same time, we don't want to create confusion to the user fragmentation. So if two different groups come to the SIG and they ask to do the same provider, we will simply ask them, hey, go get together and join forces. So yes, there will be a discussion, but at SIG level, there is a tech leads and stuff like that, and SIG leads that will try to sort this out for the sake of the community. Getting together is a benefit for both groups.
That makes sense to me. And I was trying to think if there was a situation where there was like, what if there was a provider in Kubernetes SIGs and then the vendor showed up and wanted to like own that, but I'm not even sure that that's ever happened or would happen. So who knows? All right. Any other questions or comments? I'll just look back through chat here quickly. All right. I think we are good to move on to the next one then. Thank you, Fabrizio, for all the topics. Christian, you've got the next one about generating prow job YAMLs and automate changes to test jobs. So please take it away.
Yeah, hey, so we've got this long-running issue lying around that we want to generate the pro job configuration instead of manually copy-pasting YAML around. We have to copy-paste YAML around in this case when, for example, we get a new release branch and we want to have pro jobs for that release branch or something like that. I implemented a solution for that, which is inspired by what they do at AWS for EKS jobs, pro jobs somewhere. The reason why I bring it up here is because this could also be useful for providers to use. I did already Pocket for CapV to just reuse the binary for CapV. What it's doing is it has a configuration file lying in test infra. It has templates, Go templates lying in test infra. And based on that, it creates files with pro job configuration out of this Go templates at the end. And yeah, the way to use it, or I currently implement it is we could just have a make generate test infra pro jobs make target in our cluster API repository, which requires to set the test infra directory as parameter, because locally everyone has that repository basically possibly at a different directory. And this tool would then deterministically generate our pro job YAMLs from that configuration. The pull request also includes updates to the Kubernetes bump documentation, which would get easier to do. So yeah, happy to get feedback on that, and yeah, just trying to spread the word here.
Yeah, definitely sounds good and worthwhile. Does anybody have questions or comments, criticisms, thoughts? I see Stefan in chat is thanking you very much for helping to keep him sane with this new patch. So that's a good thing. and Fabrizio is seconding it.
Yeah, well, while implementing it, we also found 2 things we fixed up in test infra already. So this already helped in a
That's awesome.
a way.
Yeah, that's totally cool. All right. Any other questions or comments on this one, or should we move on to the next topic? All right, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So Jonathan, you've got the next topic, thoughts on criteria timeline for the add-on provider release. Please take it away.
Yeah, so now it's a new year. I was thinking about what the potential criteria or timeline could be for getting CapH out of the alpha release into a V1. At least for my end, like I think most of the features are there, and I don't really think there's too much that we need to do. I don't really see the API changing too much, and it seems like people who plan on adopting it have been using it as is. So I was just gonna open the floor and see if anyone else had any thoughts on what they would like to see in a V1 release, or what would be blocking a release like that.
Great question. Yeah, does anybody have comments on like features they would like to see in the add-on provider, or any blockers they think might be there? Otherwise, it might be maybe like send out an email to the list or something, and open an issue on that repo. Say, hey, we're going to do a 1.0 release. Get your comments in now, and if you don't get anything within a few weeks, maybe just do the release.
Yeah, or maybe another way to phrase it was would be, what were the things that like Cappy and CapZ and the other Kubernetes 6 repos needed to do before they considered themselves ready in terms of like setting anything up.
I think you're getting a +1 towards graduation from the chat with Fabrizio there. So I'm not seeing any hands going up or anything. I would say maybe start moving towards your 1.0 release and like advertise it, and then if nobody responds within a few weeks, like you're probably good to go.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Does anybody else have comments or questions on that topic before we move on? I see Stefan has commented that they did a V1 beta 1 is what they did in Core Cappy before they went, in case you have an alpha now and you want to like step into it, I guess. Alrighty. Seems like there's a little support for lazy consensus as well. All right, cool. Looking forward to that 1.0 release, Jonathan. Derek, you've got the next topic about office hours for new contributors. Please take it away.
Yeah, so maybe not necessarily office hours. So hi, I'm Derek. I attended one of these SIG meetings last year. I've mainly been focusing on Minikube the past year. But for this group, being new to it, I was hoping to make some contributions this year. And I was wondering if there could be like some sort of separate group or meeting for people to come up to speed with the project.
That's a good question. Have we ever done something like that before, Fabrizio?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. In the past, we tried different ways to involve new contributors. We need a sort of deep dive and workshop on different topics. Many of them are recorded, and some of them are also linked from the book. But if there is critical mass, I'm happy to basically have this additional meeting maybe once a month or 2 times a month, where we can be there and ask a question for from folks that want to ramp up with the project. This sounds a good idea to me. Before committing, let's make sure that there is critical mass.
Okay, and what about tax? So I see that most people are with companies. So I'm currently between jobs. My last job was at NASDAQ, and I worked with Kubernetes a good bit on the AWS side. So I was wondering, do these companies normally buddy up and work on tasks together? So would it be more of a thing with like, you know, getting with a feature that you think you can help out with? How does that work necessarily?
Sorry, maybe I missed the question. Could you repeat?
Okay, so for tasks, do these companies work in groups? So is everyone grouped up by their company working on features that, you know, they need for, you know, their project or, you know, feature for their service? Or is it, you know,
I mean, and please interrupt me if you want to, Fabrizio, but in my opinion, Derek, that is not necessary. I think you will see that there are many people here representing cloud providers. And you know, for those of us who do represent cloud providers, I am not one, but you know, yeah, there's vested interest in making sure that your provider is you know, is up to snuff and whatnot. And so there's a lot of discussion there. And I think if you want to work with a provider that has a big representation here, it's probably good to communicate with them to find out, you know, where issues might exist or where opportunities for contribution might be. But I think in general, if you see bugs that are open and not being worked on by any provider, perhaps a provider that you're comfortable with or you prefer using, and you're able to, you know, kind of find a solution for that bug, I think you should feel free to go and comment on those issues and say that you'd like to get involved and then propose patches. We do not have any strict requirement that patches must come from a source organization that's the same as the provider. So I think your contributions would probably be welcome across all of our repos.
okay, I see. So in the meantime, I mean, there'll probably be more contributors in the future, but particularly for me, is there a task I could get on with someone to kind of like pair program and, you know, go through the process of, you know, making that first contribution?
Great question. And Fabrizio has his hand up, and I'm going to pass it over to him.
Yeah, I was before. Let me chat about. So this is a community project. Any contribution is more than welcome, but really more than welcome. We work all together, no matter of the affiliation, and that's critical for the success of the project. So definitely no need to be part of any company, whatever. The only things that you need is to sign the CLA for CNCF to do to submit code. The same applies for opening issue, making not only for doing PR, but also for doing proposal, opening issue, whatever. They are more than welcome from user and everyone. With regards to the option to pair, to do some pair programming, yeah, we did this in the past when we did this kind of workshop, or when we did bug triage all together, stuff like that. It all comes up to find someone that has time to do it, to invest on it, and someone willing to receive. So if there is idea, some concrete step need, I'm happy to figure it out if I can help. But time is yeah, it is never enough. So
yeah. So not even
if,
just I'm sorry.
no, please go on.
Yeah, so not even just pair programming, but let's say, collaboration on a ticket. So let's say someone, writes a new feature or a new patch, I could come in and write the test or something like that, or vice versa. Like, is there an opportunity to do that now?
Oh, this basically, I think that is how we work. Someone open a PR, other folks chime in, comment, provide feedback, and we move on. So we do this implicitly on every PR.
Okay. So with that being said, is there anyone on this call currently working on something?
I cannot speak for everyone, but if someone is here, I think that they have some interest in Cast API. It could be write code, it could be using it, it could be just liking the project. But yeah,
I wanted to make a suggestion because it can be difficult to sync up with people and kind of get into this pair programming activity the way you're kind of talking about it, Derek. My recommendation would be like if you're already feeling comfortable with Cluster API and you want to start taking the next steps into doing development on Cluster API, it's probably worthwhile to look at our testing infrastructure and start to understand like how you could operate the testing infrastructure. And many of our tests, especially through the Docker provider, can be run locally to exercise the core pieces of the Cluster API mechanics. So I think a first step, a great first step is becoming comfortable with the testing infrastructure, because that will start to give you a window into where contributions can be made to really help out the core of Cluster API. And once you feel really comfortable with that, it becomes much easier then to look at the other providers and kind of see how everything works together. So I think my recommendation, even if you're not able to link up with someone to start pair programming, is like start working through the testing platform, start understanding how to run it. And then I think you'll see we have issues in our backlog that will probably start to make sense at that point. It'd be a good place to start contributing.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get into as well, just to avoid like all of the headaches of, getting set up and, the environment not, working properly, and just speed through that and, not get frustrated if, there's something that isn't building properly or something like that.
All right, cool. We only have a few minutes left, so if you don't mind, Derek, I'm gonna move on. But I would suggest come back to the Slack channel and bring this topic up and reach out, and we can at least try to help you get started there. And I see Nawaz has added some good first issue link into the chat here, so that's another great place to look.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for the topic, Derek. It's a great one.
sorry, very, very quick one. I'm pasting the link from the books where we have a lot of walkthroughs, how to set up your environment, videos that could be interesting.
Awesome. Thank you, Nawaz and Fabrizio. And if I could just ask you both to add those links to the agenda here, it'll be easy to find them, because for some reason I can't copy paste chat text. I don't know why. All right. In the few minutes we have left here, we've got one provider update. Chris, please take it away.
Yeah, just a quick shout out that Cluster API Provider Packet, also known as the Equinix Metal one, released V080, which is just bringing us up to speed with CAPI 1.6 and drop in V Alpha 1.3 and stuff. So nothing super exciting, but we're keeping up. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. And that's great to see support for 1.6 already, like, keeping up there. All right. And then I have a quick update about the Carpenter feature group, just a public service announcement. We do have a meeting today, a couple items on the agenda. It should be an exciting meeting as always. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. Does anyone have any ad hoc topics or questions or comments they want to say before we take off here? All right, I'm not seeing any hands going up or comments in chat. So going in 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you everyone for coming out today, and we will see you next week, and have a good day and week and weekend.
Thank you, Mike.